it's very tough, right? And it's always going to be tough. I can't. I wish I can give you a remedy and tell you, well, this is kind of what you can do. But
Yes.
the way I would frame it is not you trying to get investors, but you're actually blessing these investors with the privilege of joining your journey. Because I think there's so many investors, and if you approach it from that way, and that's what we've seen, like maybe you don't have the money, maybe you're in desperate need, but really you're doing something great. And whoever is aligned with your mission, because you don't want to bring the wrong investors. I've seen so many times people just shorthand themselves, bring someone around who takes like a significant chunk and derails the whole mission, and sucks the life out of what you're doing. There's so many ways where you can get grant, non-dilutive funding. For in my case, there has been plenty of incredibly generous fellowships and opportunities that you can tap into. I think what you need to focus on is the impact, making sure that, again, it's not about doing an app. It's not about like, which again is great, but make sure that you are impacting the people that you need to impact, that you're seeing, first of all, for yourself and your husband as co-founders or leaders of this organization, you're seeing that impact. And documenting that impact, and believing there's so many people out there that are looking for motivated, empathetic people to invest in your mission. And obviously, you're tackling education is a big problem, and there's so many people that want to contribute that mission. Myself, to give kind of practical tools, I have a list of kind of investment resources and some of the fellowships and all that I'm happy to share with your community through Aya. So please let me know, Aya, and I can share kind of a spreadsheet with that. But make sure that you find those mission aligned, patient investors. And again, like I know it's hard in the beginning. So make sure that you're frugal, you're bootstrapping. For us, it took us about 3 years before we secured our first investment. But until we've done that, we made sure that every dollar we spent counted, right? If you don't need an application, as I mentioned, like focus, what is your minimum viable product? Maybe in the beginning, it's not building an app, it's building a community, right? It's starting a Facebook group and getting users and getting traction, because ultimately that's what people and investors are looking for. They're looking for the traction and the validation that you're going to get to your user group. And this could be a Facebook group, right? That shows that you have interest, and they're investing in you. Like you can't really, nobody at the early stage, nobody cares about your revenues, your projections, because you don't have none. You can't prove anything. What you can prove is that you have passion, and you're willing to that you basically pursue this and make it happen, and basically manifest it. So that's what you need to show, right? And talking about the deck, put yourself, put your story on that deck. That's what's going to get people excited. Don't kid yourself trying to put a business canvas or model, because all of that is not going to mean anything at this stage, because I believe everything is going to be basically a hypothesis, right? But your story is true, your passion is true, and that's what you need to put out there. It's a very important observation. Again, I don't know who mentioned this quote, but basically, it said that hard work puts you where good luck can find you. Right? So this is very important, right? It's not about hard work. It's not like, oh, if you work hard, things will happen. There's definitely kind of an element of luck to it. And the harder you work, the luckier you get. Right? So that's very important, and I think that has been always my case. It's making sure that it's your preparation meets the opportunity that's waiting for you. You make sure that you learn the skills, you develop yourself as a person, as a product, and once an opportunity comes in for you to pitch or to present, you're there, you're ready, and you make the best out of it. Many times people are captured within the negative thoughts. Like for example, coming from Libya, that has been the situation. It still is, right? I always get it every day. Like, and people will always think that it was impossible until it's done, right? That's kind of what Nelson Mandela said. And these are things that are very important. Negativity, I wouldn't say negativity, but I think self-criticism and self-doubt in healthy doses is very important, because again, you want to be hubris about that you want to solve a problem, but you want to be humble that you can't solve it alone. And I think sometimes people get things mixed. They just think that they're going to change the world, they're kind of the new coming prophet, everything, and they, when they hit that wall, they just kind of crash, because they didn't have the humbleness to understand that this is going to be bigger than them. They need to build this kind of army, this close group of people. And as I mentioned, make sure to fire even before you hire, because once you start building that culture, you want to be extremely protective of it. You don't want to, because I remember myself early on, everybody who say, I'm going to work, like, let's work on this, I was just, okay, let's do it. And obviously free labor, like interns or people excited, or we do a hackathon. But because I never thought that someone would be excited about the things I'm excited on, and it ended up and ends up as I mentioned, just being like a life drain, and it just sets you back because they come and they're not as motivated as you. It's just a mess. So I think if you have 2 or 3 people, it's and they're motivated and passionate, it's very important. And you will have your low moments, right? If you see kind of your typical entrepreneurship curve, it's just ups and down, but the overall trend is upward. So you will have those kind of and it's going to be internally within your negative thoughts, or within the community, you're inevitably going to have these kind of downturns. So you want to make sure that you are prepared mentally, but also you're surrounded with a community that will push you up. But again, make sure that you're not within a bubble. You're not too, because sometimes there is an issue, right? That maybe what you're tackling is not solvable. So you don't want to be overly optimistic. So always make sure not to kind of oust all the negative people, or I would say the negative people, but everybody who critiques you, you have to make sure, are they critiquing something legitimate, or it's just kind of because they couldn't do it, they're telling you can't do it as well. Question. And again, this is one of the things that we faced early on, right? It took us about, I think, 2 years, and my argument was always, because I was launching something within the healthcare space, an MVP in healthcare has a much higher threshold than an MVP anywhere else, right? Because you want to make sure that actually it functions well. And so that was always my concern, right? No, this is not going to work. People, we're kind of playing with people's lives here and all that. But even then, just thinking back, there could be some elements or certain modules that we could have launched and gathered some feedback, and that would have informed later steps. So back to your question, there's going to be different, I would say, spheres of exposure that you need to build. First of all, your friends, your family, just having and it depends on the product, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to expose it to your target consumers. Because if your product, like, I don't know, for example, for a healthcare product, in my case, if someone doesn't need it, or they're not sick, or initially, because our focus was on people who are sick, but now it's more kind of holistic healthcare and lifestyle improvement. So in the beginning, we needed those populations. So actually, one of our early adopters was my grandma. She was actually the 5th person to use the application. And I always joke around, when you think about early adopters, those like tech savvy people. But in my case, it was my grandma, who we just opened the laptop. They put it in front of our chair, in front of her, and I actually have a picture of her actually connected with her doctor in Tripoli. She can't walk, and she had like heart surgeries and all that. And now every time she needs a doctor, I was like, okay, okay, this may be a good doctor to connect with. So I think it's okay to kind of have that I would say staged or incremental exposure, but make sure you're being very strategic about who you expose it to. Because again, if you expose it to people who are just going to clap and cheer for you and say this is great, maybe that's not much of a critical exposure that you need, right? And again, like, there's no such thing as perfect. Again, that's something I fell to as well. And you make sure that because there's always something you can launch, right? It could be even sometimes some mocks of the application, where it's not the actual application, it's just, this is how it's going to look when you click here, this is going to happen. So you're actually showing people the screens if it's an application, or it could be just a prototype of a product, just to people to interact with, because it's very insightful. Maybe you will think and about a certain path, but that will be debunked very early on, and you would have wasted so much time, which is more important than even money on it. So I definitely encourage you to launch as fast as you can. So in Libya, perfect. Actually, you can go ahead and actually download the application and test it for yourself, right? That has been one of our pain points, because as Aya mentioned, I'll tell this to our investors and our partners: if we make it happen in Libya, we can make it happen anywhere, because the simple things that anywhere else could be as a simple integration to Stripe or PayPal and you're done. In Libya, we had to build a whole fintech product within Speetar. So we're in healthcare, and we had to build something called Speetar Wallet. And now Speetar Wallet, basically, it's its own product. And basically, it's connected to payments through Libyana, through Madar, Sadad, through Misa, iCash, Muamalat, with the central bank. And that by itself took a process of its own. Because we were so adamant that this has to work, because easily we can say, oh, there's no e-payments, oh, there's no good internet, and that's done, right? But we have it, and it's functional. We have payments every day coming through different channels. We had in the beginning just Misa, but not everybody had Misa, so we introduced Sadad. And for those of you, like obviously outside Libya, these are different kind of payment gateways. Some of them are voucher-based prepayments, where you can just pay and get a card and just enter a code and so on. And it's one of the things that's still hurting, I think, the digital economy in Libya, like the lack of kind of proper payment gateways. But more so recently, as we scale abroad, now we're integrating with Stripe, with PayPal, the more kind of traditional payment methods, because we're having more clients come from Egypt, from Jordan, Kenya, Tunis, and so on. But it has been a pain point that took us about a year to solve, and we ended up creating. It's crazy because there's no knowledge out there, right? There's nothing you can Google, you can research to solve an issue in Libya. Like, for example, payments, healthcare. There's no data. There's no Reddit thread that can answer some of your typical questions. So it was a headache. It was actually just getting connected to people within the e-payment space who know actually information that would be informative for us. It took us a while. I remember I was on calls, and someone would I would spend 2 hours calling them, and they end up knowing anything. Or someone would call me and they say, oh, we have a solution, but it's going to come in 3 months. It's like, no, I have patients that need to pay today. That is your solution rate. It's like, oh no, we're working on it. And again, like, we had to build this product. I still can't believe that we had to, because I didn't want to do it. Like, I didn't want to build the whole Speetar thing from the beginning. If there was a solution out there, I would just adopt it and tailor it to Libya. But no one of the big companies, and this is why I'm really I'm refraining away from the inventor term, because I must say there's no invention here. It's just, I think if there is an invention, it's an invention in the business model and how you adopt this to a context such as Libya, right? But telemedicine is out there. It's connection. It's basically Zoom for healthcare, whatever. But there was no company willing to go to Libya. I remember, like, I went to the biggest telemedicine conference in the US, in Florida, and then in Minnesota, and we told them, like, we have this country, I think there's an opportunity, come and help us. Can you translate into Arabic? I was like, oh no, yeah, the market is no big. Or do you have funding? I remember, like, one company asked me for 100K. I was like, what? Another company, okay, we can do it for 50K, and then we're going to share. I was like, no, like, I'm just going to open the market for you. Just help us. I'm going to provide. But that's what you're going to face, right? It's your problem. It's your payment. Nobody's like invested in that. So we had to build a solution from scratch. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if there's something out there, you can adopt, you can white label, you can tailor, do that, because ultimately the innovation is going to be in how you acquire customers and make the business model work. It's not in reinventing the wheel or building the next Facebook, or maybe the product is just a Facebook group where you connect a community. Maybe it's just a Google form that you can connect people together, and from that will inspire what the product is going to come to be. But people now think, and I have this with so many friends back home, is like, everybody wants an app, and maybe it's not an app that you need. Maybe the problems that you have don't require an app, and just people like spend so much time and money on doing these things, and I think for us, an app has been needed. And for example, the payment gateway, what we call now Speetar e-wallet, which obviously we're offering to anyone. And I think one of the things that we're doing is building a whole kind of digital health ecosystem, allowing people to pay for the medical prescriptions through the Speetar e-wallet, pay for the medical visits through the Speetar wallet, paying for certain medical procedures through the Speetar e-wallet. So if you're going to do a clinic or ask, so we're trying to, now we have that solution in place. How can we basically leverage to its max? Because it took so much time and money to invest, right, to build this holistic ecosystem where we can basically manage credit. And one thing that we're thinking about is having kind of a community-based insurance system where many people will pay, for example, 10 dinars a month, and you will have a pot of money within a certain community that could pay for someone else's surgery procedure or someone else's kind of need. And another time, someone else could use that money. So we're trying to innovate with these models that are not new, right? That has been applied somewhere else, but how to make it work within Libya. Because one of the biggest issues in healthcare is financing, especially as you know, Libya, we don't have an insurance system. It's not like we can work with Medicare or Medicaid in the US. It's very few of the population that have insurance from the banks or from the oil companies, but the majority are just paying out of pocket. So there is different ways to innovate around like coming up with solutions for healthcare financing that we will leverage this kind of e-wallet through. But again, it comes to like being obsessed about the problem, making sure for us, our obsession is high quality, affordable care for everyone who needs it. That's the simple kind of mission statement, whether they're in Libya, whether they're abroad, making sure that a patient in the deep south, in Ghat, like hundreds of kilometers away from Tripoli, from a nearest doctor who can serve them, could get the same quality of care that a patient in MGH and Harvard Medical School can get. I think a patient should not suffer or die just because they were born in a certain country where the medications and care is there, right? We have people dying from cancer, but maybe there's no treatment for that, or for other diseases. But for it's really pathetic. And again, this takes me to a quote by a Canadian writer, William Gibson, where he said, "The future is already here. It's not just equally distributed." And I think this is what drives us every day, right? You have incredible innovation, incredible resources, robotic surgery, 5G, precision medicine, and you have people still dying from malaria and dehydration and lack of insulin, and it's just it's mind-boggling, right? And I think what innovation and technology is allowing to do is help distribute that quality of care. And what we're doing through Speetar is help bring back some of the physicians who left the country. And obviously we can't blame them and we can't tell them to come back and treat the patients, but maybe through allowing it a digital infrastructure, they can support and they can help, especially in cases such as pediatrics, mental health, ophthalmology, dermatology, where you don't need that physical presence, but also train and support. One new product that we actually just launched now recently is Speetar Academia, which is a total e-learning platform geared towards capacity building for within medical students and postgraduates. And the idea here, we are training Speetar's future doctors. So today they're training through Speetar Academia and learning the skills. Tomorrow they're practicing on the platform and building that kind of talent pipeline. So it's thinking how you can basically create this digital infrastructure in the cloud within a context of instability and insecurity, where other people would just kind of feel hopeless, say, no, there's nothing, you can't build in Libya, you can't build in Yemen, it's too scarce, that people like will build, I don't know, there was going to be explosions, but yeah, but you have this whole like Facebook is creating metaverse, like it's a whole parallel universe where you can build and provide opportunities for people. So I think people like are so hopeless that they can't think of any other solution.